Hi there, today we've got Chris Dudgeon, probably best known for the bands April Floor and Boz, and Chris also did quite a lot of managing and promoting kind of late 90s, 2000s, Chris.
Yeah.
So welcome and thanks very much for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. First question, Mr. Kirk, I think.
What were your influences and how did the band come together, April Floor?
First two albums I bought were Bad Manners and Thriller at the Racecourse. It was like a record fair in 1984, 1985, something like that. And then I won a signed Simple Minds poster. So that was like my first kind of introduction to music through my parents' like record collection, stuff like that. I used to watch the Top of the Pops, the old Grey Whistle Test, so I was exposed to a lot of music that I never really, like the punk scene, I kind of missed that. I've been born in 79, so just kind of looking back retrospectively. And then looking at Kilmarnock, there wasn't really much happening that I could see when we came out of school. So we started playing bands in school, essentially. That's where I started. I picked up a guitar, kind of started getting into it. From My Sins, I learned I think it was the first Oasis album, and then like Nirvana. And that's how I kind of picked up songs, taught myself, really. Much like a DIY attitude to it. So through school at the Grange, there was a few bands kicking about, Angel Foam, Imodium. We formed Boz there as well, off the back of being at school. So where'd you go and play in Kilmarnock? So the first band I saw in Kilmarnock was Nine Bar at the Caddycoy. And I was like, wow. They're making an absolute racket. I think Kenny had been in the Termites before and they'd had quite a lot of success. So it was like hearing all these stories. Remember John Menzies in the town?
Yep.
It was a bit of a collective. Everybody would go down with Kerrang or Metal Hammer or NME came out, and you'd have the kind of cliques of, the indie, the punk. But there was such a scene there at the end of the 90s that people, would congregate. So Caddycoy was the first gig, but then the K Park Tavern, that was the first gig I played, was in there. Kind of really kicked it off, I think. Although you guys had been playing before that, and that's where I kind of met you guys and learned about what had been happening and stuff before.
What was your memories of your early gigs?
Well, I actually started as a manager for Imodium. They're my friends, so I'd kind of jam playing bass, but then I went about and started booking gigs. First one was at Grand Hall, I think, Cape Park Tavern, Grand Hall, and that was after seeing Nine Bar doing it. If they could do it there, then we were still at school, so we could pull that crowd of people. So just plugging in and playing. There was Burlington Berties. I remember that. Everybody began there. You get your amps just along the floor and the PA and stuff. So it was plug in and play. Really, you could go, you'd Fanny Big Astley. We played in Paris Match quite a lot, which wasn't really a venue as such, but I mean, again.
Are you talking, Chris, like doing it yourself, like DIY gigs, like hiring venues and just
booking it,
bands
printing the
into-
tickets, making the flyers, hiring the PA. So you're always going to have a wee bit of money you've got to sort out if you're going to get paid, even just to cover your expenses at that point. There was no point ever running it at a loss. So having financial backing's always great, but really when you're playing in your mate's garage and you're wanting a gig, you'll play anywhere. So
because it's interesting because we'd Stuart Dunlop from the Tens in last week, and we always say what advice you got for young bands, and that was his advice. Do it yourself.
yeah.
Don't
Practice,
put on the gig
practice.
yourself. You're going to make, it's not so much making money, but the money can go in new equipment, it can go to.
Thing is, once you've got that experience, because see in Kilmarnock there is a bit of that kind of glass ceiling where do you go to play, because there's not many venues in between. So then your progression is you'll go to Glasgow, you get your first big Glasgow gig, or King Tut's been the kind of, like if you're cutting your teeth to get there. But then if you put on your gigs yourself, you'll be aware of the kind of dodgy promoters that might be about, or the pay to play was the big thing, you end up paying through the nose, and you're getting the mick taken out essentially as a young band. So just put the feelers out, get your wits about you, I would say.
Or cut your teeth here, get your kind of on your
Absolutely.
craft a bit. Plus the fact, if you are progressing, you want to play the big cities, you're going to have to build a following.
That's it. You build your following, you have to get better equipment. You're always. Well, I was always snapping strings, so there's always you're always spending money before you've even went anywhere.
How has the local music scene helped or hindered
As I said,
your experience?
you could play, you know, in the corner pub and there's sawdust there and you're getting abuse shouted at you, you get to play the same song every, you know, do you know Mr. Brightside? Or, you know, the standards, the pub standards that you play over and over, or you get asked for. And if you're trying to play your own music as well, you know, it's one thing if you are doing covers, you know, people, you've got to really push your own music if you're going to put it out there. You've got a heart and soul. I would say young bands always try and have fun, but, you know, be happy with your name. choose a good name. You end up arguing over it.
Is Boys a good name?
That was just one of the things, wasn't it? You know, we end up regretting it, I think, years later when people ask, what does it mean? You know, because it's a very Scottish Kilmarnock vernacular, isn't it?
It's very true in a band called Outstanding Fold the Wedding.
What does it mean?
I know what it means.
What does it mean?
That's for another day. It's Chris's interview.
That was like April 4, I think, we were standing. I joined the band in April, and Chris, the original singer, said, what month are you born? April 4, and that was it.
That's pretty
And
good.
it was like, it always sounded like it had a deeper meaning than it actually, you know. But then you had the first band, I remember Screwfish, when I heard the Screwfish, the bass player Barry Dickens went to school with the boys, Ben and James. He was the original bass player, and then he came to the Grange and he told me he'd played in this band, Screwfish. I was like, I need to check them out. But they got James in, and then they changed their name famously to Biffy Clyro, which was a play in apparently Cliffy's Biro. But they've made up a million stories, I think, for the, as you do.
Do you know the definitive story of
I
what
think
it is?
that is the original one. It's about a pen that was a Cliff Richard merchandise. So it was a Cliffy Biro, a Biffy Clyro. I remember Ben came up with a name. It was being imaginative for feeling young, because life yearns real optimism was the acronym of, but he's made that up, I think, you know, just for NME.
Because you played a lot with Biffy.
We did play a lot with him.
Yeah.
And that's actually, going back to the question about that glass ceiling, you would have to progress to Glasgow. So we actually kind of, it was like, who could play Tuts first, who could play Cat House first. And they started doing really, really well. But there was a point we were both up for supporting Incubus at the Cat House. And because we'd played so many times, we had more ticket sales than Biffy at the time. So Vardy, the manager at the Cat House at the time, gave us the support slot over Biffy. And I remember the three of them standing in front of us with their jackets on, the faces tripping them. But they took that as competition. They went away and wrote their first album, which is a masterpiece. So it's kind of after that, I just put the guitar down for a bit. And I went and worked with Biffy. I was roadieing them for them in their first two tours, which was amazing fun.
Is that UK or?
Yeah, like Hell is for Heroes. They went on tour with Snow Patrol before they were massive. So they were playing that massive single that they had. It's Run, I think. That got into like Grey's Anatomy, and that just broke them in America. But we were on the tour bus about 3 months before, playing in Camden Lock, you know, and if I'd thought that those two bands, you know, Biffy and Snow Patrol would have went on to have been so absolutely massive as they have done, it's wild.
Did you have an inkling when you were working with Biffy Clyro that this band could take over?
I was always one of the biggest fans, to be honest. I thought they were really, really good, but I'd watched them progress from, to me they were like a kind of, they sounded like early Green Day, but then they worked and worked and worked. They practiced nearly every day, I think, every week. And then they started writing those really good songs, so they progressed and changed a lot. And I think that's, people always ask, how do you do it, what's the magic formula? You know, there's a million things that have to line up. The fact it was the end of the 90s and there was that big kind of, the whole after Nirvana, there was what's happening in the music scene, scene was kind of fluctuating, where does it go?
I can remember they were around about the same time as the modern world, because you would see it in the Kilmarnock Standard, Biffy Clyro, and I was thought, I couldn't say after I'd read it, 10 minutes after, I couldn't remember the name,
Yeah.
because it was such a bizarre name. But to be fair to them, I mean, they really did work it. I mean, they must have played everywhere in Britain, kind of up and down the motorway all the time.
They did, so
and they certainly
much the
deserved
same.
their success.
They played in Kilmarnock a lot. The first time I saw them was at Cape Heart Tavern, and I said, I met your old bass player, and that's we just got chatting, and then we started playing gigs together and stuff. But as I say, when they went up to Glasgow, they started just telling people they were a Glasgow based band, It's just the Kilmarnock was Kilmarnock, you know. To go from an international, from local to national to international, just say they're from Glasgow and you're in Milan, you know, or California.
That's the way it goes, I suppose, isn't it?
How has the local music scene changed for the early days when you were playing to now?
I think not even just the pandemic changing, the fact that venues had to close or pubs had to close, the fact that online in the past 15 years has completely changed everything. You could make a band and record an album on your own and put it out that you've got massive fans and a following and build it all online, but that's not going to give the experience of going in if your amp cuts out in a pub. You know, those very basic things that you, from the ground up, that it's good to have a grasp on. I don't know if that makes it harder or easier. I think it's easier to get exposure, but does that, you know, if you're not talented or experienced or your heart's not in it, you maybe put something out that you might regret first and before you build up to it. Because before it was hard. And we went to play for Cherry Red Records in Camden and the guy slated us. He's like, you've got two things going on here. He said, you're like a punk band and you're like a metal band. And he said, we're a punk label. So, and that was hard for us going down there all bright-eyed, you know, like down to London. We were going to get a record deal. Back to the drawing board, you know, back into the bakery and practicing.
I mean, you're right in what you say. And is it easier or harder? I don't know. It's easier to get exposure, but there's less gigs around for young bands.
Yeah.
So where do they cut their teeth? Do you know, and they could get signed, they go out and toured, and they have no.
It's that thing, if you're a teenager, you might end up in an echo chamber where all your pals will tell you you're amazing, but say once you get in front of a record company execs, like your drummer's out of time, you know, the minutiae detail of if you've ever gone into a studio and tried to play with a drum track, you know, just a million things that you might not even realise until you get to that point. If you get £300-400 together to record a demo over a weekend and you go in and you're not ready, they're just throwing money away. Whereas you could sit and do it in your bedroom now, go over and over.
Whenever we interviewed Stuart last week, he had a list of places in Kilmarnock you could play. There must have been about 30 names on it. And now, so where do you play in Kilmarnock now?
Two.
One or two places.
Bakers.
Why, as time goes on, is it getting there less and less places to play? Why is that?
Bakers and the Cardiff.
Why is that?
I think it's a combination of the lockdown pandemic crushed a lot of businesses, but I think there's definitely a change in. Now my friend tried to sell me a Metallica ticket yesterday for £124. I'm like, I wouldn't pay that. I think £50 or £60 is extortion for a show. So I'm going to see a band Snot in October. It's $25. You know, they're just happy to be playing still. They're not in it for the business. So I'm more about the quality over the quantity of gigs now. Whereas back in the day, there would be bands playing every night. You could just wander. They're up in Glasgow and 13th note, a million venues.
Just not the way anymore, is it? It just doesn't happen.
So Kilmarnock, yeah, you'd Burlington Berties, Fanny Gaslight, Paris Match. I think we even played, was it the Tudor? I think we played in there. McLean's Arms. You could just go and play in any pub if you were playing songs that people knew as well. So there's that element of you might have to do covers, you know, if you're going to want to play to certain crowds, unless you're going to play your own music, and then you've really got to have your heart and soul in it and believe in yourself and prove to people that you're going to, you know, if they're going to pay to come out and see you.
How has music changed you?
I was quite shy, I think, when I was younger. It certainly kind of brought me out of my shell. I mean, people might not believe that, but yeah, getting in front of a crowd and it kind of forces you to realise who you are or what you're doing. And when I went to work with Biffy Clyro, I kind of realised, you know, my limitations and but also like the hope that, you know, that you could be successful if you stick at it.
It'd certainly bring you out your shell.
Yeah.
No, that happened to Barry right enough. He's been in his shell since the day he was born. He's still in it. I still don't know his second name. Only know 30 years.
On the stage, though, I mean, I just enjoy playing music, so I have fun, and I think that people always say to me, I always look like I'm having fun on the stage. Like, if I go into my own little space and just enjoy it.
And that's what it's all about.
If I had the fear of going on the stage, I wouldn't do it.
I think for guys like us, that's what it is. Obviously, back in the day, you're trying to get a deal, you're trying to make a success of it. But when it comes down to it, if you enjoy doing it and you're, your age or older like us, you just enjoy doing it. It's like a hobby.
Just love making a racket as well.
Absolutely.
Well, what's been your
pals?
What's been your highlight musically?
I think we were lucky in that when we were playing, we had that kind of trajectory to a point where, so the first gig I think was the support slots we got was Snuff, a band called Snuff from London, China Drum. We supported them, and again that was all through us working up and selling tickets and getting those gigs over other bands that were out there, because there were so many bands, a lot of competition for it, and that made us proud that we for not even just selling the tickets, we felt that the music we were playing was valid. It was good enough to go out and play in front of people, and then you get that response back from people, and then when you're playing with your heroes, the people that you've looked up to, and then you're kind of treated as an equal at that point, it kind of makes you, build your confidence up for sure. And then, so say we got to China Drum, we played with one of the specials, a fella called Kendall, and the Rat Trap. That was amazing. Again, we were kind of punk metal, and they were total ska, reggae.
Who's the specials?
I think so, yeah, Kendall. Yeah, that's what he tagged himself on the poster anyway. It was like a sax player on one of the albums or something.
Oh, a sax player, or maybe something like that.
Yeah. And then the gig after that was Incubus. That was the big one for us. And that was it was like a make or break. And I think we all thought, right, we've had a good run here in 2 years. Let's go and do something else kind of thing. I said Biffy were taking off at that point, so I ended up going working with them. And that was the kind of, April 4th was we left it on a high, and
that was it.
And that was it, really.
You never thought of reforming the
We've
band?
spoke about it, because Jamie's went on to form the Breathing Method, and they're actually having quite a bit of success now. He's got the studio down in Irvine. A big shout out to the Breathing Method guys. They're still keeping it going. But we spoke about maybe doing a reunion, but we'll see. It's one of those things, isn't it?
Plenty of time.
But like Spinal Tap.
And are you involved in music now? What do you do now?
I'm just playing in the house just now. I'm kind of trying to...
With a planner.
Yeah, well, I was playing in a Foo Fighters tribute recently, so I was playing quite a lot of shows with that, and that was great fun. I ended up going from bass to fronting the band, so it was kind of like, and I'm not Dave Grohl, but he's got some voice on him, and you go and see them, so to try and, again, to ask for people's money, you have to be able, I mean, I don't look like him or anything like that, but we did quite a good job of, sounding like them. But that's a big market now as well, the tribute market. As you remember when the Belfield Tavern opened, we were one of the first bands, I think, to play in there when I met the owners. And then that really took off, didn't it, when all the other tributes, I remember like the Sex Pistols tribute was there. That was a great night.
It's a great venue.
It was.
It's just so sad to see the way it's
yeah. Again, that's to your question about why these venues don't. I mean, it's an awful lack of support. I mean, the place was rammed. And
what were your favourite venues in Kilmarnock, Chris? What was your kind of go-to place you love playing?
I don't know. We played the Grand Hall. That's a nice stage to get onto. Probably the biggest stage in Killie, isn't it? I always liked playing in Paris Match. I think that was a very, not to say studenty pub. There was all sorts of people in there, but that was like the centre of the kind of hub, because we met Paul Livingston from the Trash Cans there, and we ended up rehearsing at Shabby Road for about 2 years. I met Eddie Reader there. I didn't even know him. She was in her hat one night. I was sitting beside her for an hour, and then she got up and left. I was like, oh my God, if I'd known that was her, I'd have spoken to her, I love Fairground Attraction. And I think she was actually cousins with my aunt, Sandra Fulton.
She's married
to second cousins.
John Douglas from the Trash Cans.
Oh, is she?
She's John's wife.
John's such a
and of course she's Frank Reader for the Trash Cans singer.
Yeah.
That's his sister.
Yeah, so they were sitting together, but I had no idea it was her at the time.
It's really nice. Spoken to her a couple of times.
But that was the first, sitting down and like across to the hunting lodge, and Eddie Reader's sitting about. Like, wow, because Shabby Road, I mean, it was iconic, but it was a bit of a It was an old building, shall we say.
What a dive.
It was a bit of dive, but I mean, you love it, don't you? That was the whole
Sirocco, we started
That's
rehearsing.
Sirocco, that's right.
That shows you how long it was. Maybe 1981 I started rehearsing.
So who was the fellow that ran Sirocco again?
Spike Bain, who passed away sadly recently, Stevie, George Cowan, Ian Murray, Big Popper, he's going to do, Billy Law, he's going to do a wee interview with us as well. Clark Sorley.
That's the fella.
Clark,
yeah. When I was up at Stowe College, I was they used to send a lot of the tapes down to Sirocco to get mixed. I think they mixed like Raintown, Deacon Blue, a lot of big albums that you would never have thought had passed through Killie. But that's the Killie, isn't it? The kind of industrial workhorse of Scotland. You know, it's always making stuff and never gets the credit for it.
I went for a coffee with George Cowan. We'd met at Spike's funeral, sad occasion obviously, but he said, do you fancy going for a coffee? And he was telling me that Clark has got thousands of tapes and recordings and that from Sirocco. He's still got them all.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff would be, it's a real treasure trove, I think, of some of the things they did. And
it was a total educational. When I was at Stowe College, the lecturer was Alan. I've forgotten his surname, that's shocking. He was in the Associates.
Alan Rankin.
Alan Rankin, sorry, yeah. And I'd never heard of him till that point, and then I went and checked him out, and like that whole, so you can miss a band, you know. So I was like, into Ultravox, I knew, a lot of, maybe not so obscure or mainstream, but what was going on.
Billy Mackenzie's voice was
incredible,
sublime.
Yeah.
Do you know there's a story? Alan Rankin, a friend of mine, went there as well. It was his lecture, and Alan Rankin told the story about when they went on tour with Associates. They always booked 3 hotel rooms, one for him, one for Billy Mackenzie, and one for Billy Mackenzie's Whippets.
Oh, that's right. I remember this story. I think.
What a voice, though.
Yeah.
What a voice the man had. He was tremendous. I loved them. I think they were a great band.
It's just so many amazing bands. We were talking about Baby Chaos earlier on. When I heard their second album, first album, Love Your Self Abuse, I think it blew my mind because it was a big budget. I think it was East West Records they were signed to. It was maybe even Chris Sheldon, I think. It was a great producer. He went on to do loads of Biffy stuff and a lot of classic rock and stuff like that. But it was an amazing time. At the end of the 90s, there was a lot of music coming out.
There's some great stuff coming out here, sure. Kilmarnock.
Absolutely.
It's great. So quite a few bands got some decent success, so for a small town, we've done okay.
Yeah, I think it's that way, isn't it? He's kind of...
Well, we haven't. Other people have.
So what else do you do?
It's not about the success, it's about the enjoyment.
That's
right. No, it is about the success.
If you're still doing it,
Aye, of course. No, it is about the success.
No, it's not.
But,
Right, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Chris, thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.